Alright, welcome back. So, going forward, if things keep escalating with the NCOV, let's just call it that, I will probably make less videos because I need time to prepare for myself. Also, I just want to touch base on a few things. Here's my larger channel, and if I make a long video, just go to settings over here, click that, and see playback speed. Click that, and you can make the video slower or quicker. You could even double the speed if you wanted to go through the video fast. Just so you guys know, because a lot of people they see a 40-minute video or an hour-long video, it scares them off. They're like, I can't commit. Alright, so also if you're on my smaller channel, subscribe to my larger. If you're on my larger channel, subscribe to my smaller channel. I have two channels. All you have to do is type in MMGinvest with a space or without a space, and you'll find both channels on YouTube. Alright, so I'm going to cover a lot of things in today's video. I'm going to cover the psychology of markets and people and how they relate. My private group, it's not just about trading and stuff like that, mining stocks. It's about surviving and thriving. Some new developments on the NCOV, but I'm not gonna talk too much about it specifically to scare you guys, because some of you get scared. What else? I'm going to talk about the yield curve. We're going to look at some charts, and I'm going to cover Powell's testimony today. He said some things that are quite interesting. There's some good questions in there as well from politicians. They're usually grandstanding. Most of these testimonies, like 95% of it, is a waste of time. And I only that's why I fast forward through it, double times the speed, and try to find the things that are actually important, because usually Powell's just repeating himself from the last testimony until something big happens and this raging bull market comes to an end. Alright, so in the private group, which obviously you'd have to go to my website, links below this video, I uploaded a few things for prepping, because it's getting to that point where it's actually starting to get really serious. And if you're not prepared, I mean, let's just say if you don't have masks, you're going to have a hard time finding them. Your best bet's at your local store. Smaller the town, the better. But let's talk about market psychology for a little bit. So when I do TA, and I look at these charts, and you see the price action, right? I'm pretty much mapping out human psychology. It's human psychology that moves the markets, besides central banks, right? But at the end of the day, it's human psychology. We've all seen the Wall Street cheat sheet bubble chart, right? And that's all it is, guys. And that's like the hidden secret. That's why I pay attention to everything. It's not just fundamentals. See, fundamentals always win in the end, but markets can stay extremely irrational much, much, much longer than ever before. And what facilitates that is central banks and politicians. They want to keep the music playing as long as humanly possible, because it's in their own best interest. Because nobody wants to be... no one wants to manage over a crisis. Nobody. Right? And a lot of people think everything is so planned out. Everything is so strategically planned. They'll plan the crash. They'll plan this. No, guys. Most people in charge, in power, they're not perfect. Some of them are. A lot of them have no idea what's going on themselves. And this comes back to the psychology of markets, and not just psychology of markets, but the psychology of everything. So if you've noticed, there's people out there who are like, oh, it's just a flu, this is hype. And then you show them evidence, they see videos, they see what's going on with their eyes, but they'll still play it down. Well, why is that? Well, one, there's like three types of people, right? There's people who like the Titanic, right? It's sinking. You run to the first person, you're like, oh my god, we just hit an iceberg, the ship's gonna go down, and the first person laughs in your face. No, the ship can never sink. You run to the second person and you tell them, they're like, oh no. The second person, there's some, worry, but then they're like deer in headlights and they freeze because the anxiety scares them so much and they do nothing. And then you run to the third person goes, really? Well, what happened? They start asking questions, and then they sum up the situation. Maybe they'll go look at some evidence themselves, and then they look at all the evidence, and then they start taking action, right? And you have to find which person you are in that group. Now, I understand a lot of people are like, oh, well, the media hypes everything up, this will just blow over, and then they come up with all kinds of theories. No, guys, it's happening. It's really happening. If you could look at all the videos in my newsroom and all the evidence and still deny it, then you're either the first person or the second person. All right, so the psychology behind this and how it relates to markets. So there's different types of people for a reason. Just like the virus, it spreads, and when it finds a host, it multiplies. It clones itself, millions and millions of itself. Every time there's a new clone, because it's a little cell that I forgot what the medical term is. It replicates, right? So when it replicates, it makes copies of itself. Well, every copy has a minute different genome. Like, there's a tiny little difference to all of them. And it's due to the surroundings, the temperature of the host, or the surroundings, maybe the stress in the host. There's like thousands of things that could cause a minute change every time there's a replicate of a cell. Now, you have to look at human beings the same way. Our bodies are made up of like bajillions of cells, molecular cells. And over a span of, I forgot, maybe a year, maybe 2 or 3 years, your entire body has replicated itself and cloned itself. You're going to have cells that die off constantly, all the time. Every second, there's cells dying off, and then there's cells replicating. But every time there's a replication, the cell mutates. This actually happens in your brain as well. So when people, that's why you have to be careful what you feed your mind. Because whatever you feed your mind over a long period of time will change the way you think. Because your brain is doing the same thing. It's self-replicating and dying off at the same time, and then it becomes a clone of itself every few years. So if you feed your mind a ton of garbage over a long period of time, even 3 years, you permanently change the genome of your brain. And then you think differently. You're a different person. So that's why we see, and this falls in line with everything you see. That's why there's hardcore lefties, hardcore righties, and people, despite all evidence, they can't change the way they think and they view the world. That's because over long periods of time, since they were kids, they whatever was fed to them through the educational system, through their parents, through their environment, turn them into who they are. And then they do it to themselves as well. Whatever they feed themselves constantly is what they become. And as your brain and all the cells in your body constantly replicate and die off, you change yourself into what you are. The greatest way to see how this works is if you work out. If you work out and you want to build muscle, it's not going to happen overnight unless you synthetically do it, but that never lasts, right? And there's side effects. But if you are an athlete all your life and you're always working out, your body looks different from someone who just eats junk food and sits on the couch all day. You have genetically modified yourself to look the way you look, and that person did the same thing. And that's from what they do in the physical world, right? Same with food. You are what you eat, right? All right. So when it comes to psychology, this is my theory, by the way. The same thing happens. So when you're caught in a 11-year bull market, you have literally rewired your brain over that long period of time span, to constantly buy the dip, literally, and to always be bullish, and to always, because for the last decade, right, every little bump that's come up, the market's just gone right over it. They're just little speed bumps. And then you create this bias. And this bias is the reason people create these strong biases. And what else? Ideologies is literally based off of your primal instinct to create an environment and to influence others around you to create the same environment for your own survival. Now, who benefits from the market going up? The same people who say everything's going to be okay. And then they could at the same time ignore reality. Because it's literally wired into them, into their brains, into their psychology, to keep the constant going because it benefits them financially. And whatever benefits you financially benefits you health-wise. You could afford things like healthcare. You could afford a bunker, a house, a boat. You know what I mean? Things that so the more capital you can accumulate and wealth, the better off you are and the higher chances of survival. This all goes back to when we were just cavemen running around hunting animals and everything. All right. So that's how these biases and echo chambers are created, and that's how people can no longer see the same thing and come to the same conclusion, or see the same amount of evidence in the real physical realm and still walk away with different conclusions. Like, one person could read a book. No, 100 people could read one book. And every single one of those 100 people grab different amounts of information out of the book and come to different conclusions. And that comes down to a lot of things. The level of IQ, the way they've wired their brain all their lives, and there's also all kinds of other things. Emotional intelligence, logical intelligence, pattern recognition, knowledge of history, knowledge of science, knowledge of everything. All right. So, what am I trying to say? There's a reason why the markets just keep going up and ignoring this. Literally, the second largest economy in the world has come to a screeching halt. And everyone in this bull market is looking for any excuse to buy the dip or to keep holding, and it's because of their own benefit, and they will deny anything that'll attack their livelihood, essentially. A good example of this. You want to know what a great example a lot of you guys possibly might understand is the crypto bull market, right? Um, it was a bubble, and people just kept saying it's going to go higher and higher. Even when the bubble popped and the freaking thing fell 60%, people are like, I'm still going to hold and I'm going to wait for it to go even higher. And it was in the face of just all the evidence and everything. I warned a ton of people, and after the fact, a ton of people said, I should have taken your warning and applied it, but they didn't, and they don't know why. Well, it's because of this mindset you fall into. Just because you want something really, really bad and it means it changes your life for the better and raises your possibilities of survival, and not just survival, reproduction. The meaning of life is to survive and to reproduce. That's what I believe it is. Everything else is bullshit. Okay? But that's really the meaning of life. It's to continue your genes into the future. If you do not reproduce, then your gene pool dies off, and through nature and survival of the fittest, to Darwinism, to God himself, who made this reality and made this natural selection possible, it's here for a reason. It's here for a reason. Only the strong will survive and move along. That also goes to class systems, right? You have your extremely poor, you have your middle class, and you have your elites. Well, your elites think that, these class systems are in constant battle with each other. Both the top and the bottom, the elites and the poor, are trying to extract resources from the middle class. And that's because we're at the tail end of a century-long expansion of humanity, and the resources are running thin, people are dumber, there's competition is rising, there's population is pretty big, and there's less and less resources, and of course centralization and regulations and governments have destroyed productivity. So now it's everyone is out there, survival of the fittest, trying to get their piece of the resource to survive. So what happens is the elite want to keep their resources because they have pillaged everyone. The poor want to grab some resources for themselves, and what happens is the top class will attack the middle, because the middle class is the only threat to the top class, because they're smart enough and they have a little bit of resources to actually make a difference and to say, hey, these guys and centralization is robbing us all blind with their power of laws and regulations, right? And then the middle is being attacked from the top and the bottom, right? Now, eventually the middle will become the bottom. You'll only have a two-tier system, and then the bottom will attack the top. And the top, that's why the top is always infatuated with control structures and power, because once you have all the money, the next step is you need all the power, because if you don't have the power, then they'll take your money. All right, this is what I think and believe, my own opinion. So that's what causes all this craziness, all the conspiracies, which a lot of them end up becoming true. All right, so the moral of the story is, that's why you get these packs of people or clans of people, or you get subdivisions within society. You get what's the word, subspecies essentially. So that's why you get all these normacy biases and different biases and ideologies. And if you could just piece that together in your head and view it as such, that everyone is like controlled by their own herd, then you could easily predict where these herds are going to go and what they're going to do and how they're going to attack each other and whatnot for their own survival. Okay? And that's why I talk about that Calhoun mouse utopia experiment. If you should watch that, there's documentaries on it. It's really good stuff. It pretty much took 10,000 mice, put them together, gave them endless food, endless water, and shelter, and what ended up happening in the end. There is no such thing as utopia. You need conflict. You need bad things to happen. You need corrections in the market. You need to flush out the weak and the bad. If you don't, when it does happen, which eventually will, the bigger the fall. And that's what pisses me off about these markets. And there is no free market, but there will be again. It's just that it's going to be devastating when this managed utopia within markets, which essentially planned, comes to an end. And like I said 2 weeks ago, the Black Swan event is probably this NCOV. What's happening in China, because it's going to spread all around the world. It's coming. And right now everyone's ignoring it because if it's true, then their way of life and their survival is going to extremely drop. All right. I think I beat that horse to death. So there's new evidence coming out about it, right? The NCOV. I'm saying it. That's what I'm gonna call it because I don't want the algos to catch me. Oh, come on. Open. All right. So. Oh, here we go. Anyways, there's new information coming out. A lot of you guys aren't looking in the newsroom. I can see how many views there are because a lot of people right now stuck their heads in the sand like an ostrich, waiting for someone to come up behind them and get them in the butt. And that's human psychology as well, right? Like I said, there's that second group of people who cannot handle the truth. You want to know the truth, but you can't handle it, right? Anyways, the incubation could be up to 24 days. That means you're infectious for like 24 days. That's terrifying. Just that alone means it's not gonna be stopped. Another thing is, or maybe another thing is aerosol, meaning when you poo and you go to the bathroom and you flush, it just goes everywhere within the bathroom. Now think of all the restrooms and all the public places like airports, stadiums, you name it, right? You have to wash your hands like for literally a minute properly with antibacterial soap. A new thing, apartment buildings in Hong Kong, it's spreading through the pipes. I don't know how. I guess from flushing fecal matter, right? Or I think it's also going through the ventilation because it is airborne. They've admitted to it. So when they find like one person or two people infected in an apartment building, they literally quarantine the entire building, or they throw everyone out of the apartment building. So you get thrown out of your home, and then they send you to a camp. Just terrifying on its own. By the way, the reaction of the CCP is beyond draconian, and if that happens globally, it's not gonna play out the same everywhere else. Believe you me, people aren't gonna, especially once the food runs out, in your home, and there will be shortages. By the way, if they put price caps on goods that people need, what happens is you get massive shortages. So if the price of masks aren't allowed to go up, then what happens is there won't be any masks because people will hoard them. They won't sell them to someone else who needs it just as much or more, right? All right, so same with food. And by the way, that causes hyperinflation. So it'll. Oh, another thing. The Chinese central bank printed tens of hundreds of billions and pumped it into the market, and um, that's why the Chinese market for the past month, I mean, it's down a little bit, but not by much. If we look at the Chinese market in the past week, they did this last week, by the way. It's up. Everything is up. Most of it is up, except Alibaba. Well, not everything, but a lot. Most of it's green. Think about that. Entire economy shut down. Everyone quarantined. The amount of population, not everyone, but most cities, big cities. Shanghai just went down like a few days ago. The biggest city there, right? Population 25 million or more. That's insane. It's way bigger than New York, guys. New York, I think, is around 7 million. Anyways, there's more people in China quarantined than the population in the United States. And the United States is the third largest country, population-wise. India's second. Let that set in for a second. And their stock market is just going higher. It's insanity. It's okay. It's not if, but the matter of when. Now, even if the virus all of a sudden just went away, the ramifications of shutting down for a month is enough to pop the bubble, the global debt bubble, stock market bubble. It's enough. It's already enough, guys. Earnings for Q1 of 2020 are going to be just devastating. So a correction is due. Like a 20% drop minimum, it would be normal in this type of situation. But because they won't let it happen, it's going to just be way more devastating later. Once nothing can be done to keep people psychologically from panicking, and it's going to happen. All right. China. So China has stopped counting people who do test positive. They're only counting the people with extreme symptoms. That's probably because they're running low on resources and test units, and they can't even test people. So the numbers are probably 10x. I'll look at my prediction model. I changed a few things towards the end of this video. Everything is 10x. You have to know so they stopped testing. By the way, it's spreading all around the world right now. It's just that no one has test units to test people for it, so they can't actually go out there and say, yes, we have this many people in our country. They can't do that. So right now, the numbers that are being shown to everyone, it's nothing. It's useless because no one could test for it. China's the biggest one with the most test units, and they're pretty much only going to confirm people with it that are like terminally ill that need actual IVs and air and stuff like that. And it's like, this is the common knowledge that most people do not understand. And this is why everyone's still calm. If they understood the things that I'm telling you guys, and if you properly have enough knowledge in your brain to understand what I'm telling you, then you would at least have already bought some things and started preparing, or you're definitely going to start preparing as soon as humanly possible. All right. So you need to know the difference between mortality versus case fatality. Mortality is the percentage of people that, or pass away versus the total population. That does the total population, right? So 1.4 billion Chinese, right? Well, the percent that have died is the amount of people that have died in the total population is the percentage in the mortality. Case fatality is the percentage of the people known to be infected that actually died from it. So let's say 1 million are infected, 100,000 have died from it. That's a 10% case fatality. So that means whoever gets it, you have a 90% chance of living. Now, it all also, there's a lot of other factors: your age, your condition, your health condition prior to it, and it's pretty much it, right? So, yeah, I mean, you have to know those. And it's much worse than, the data shows. The news, it's starting. Okay, so we just finally had some warnings from the news. And Google searches are starting to really, people are starting to wake up and starting to become worried about this. Travel has been starting to fall off a cliff. People aren't going to certain areas to shop, or they're canceling their trips. They're not going to eat in certain villages and major cities, if you know what I mean. Also, crazy stuff like this is happening. People are trying to bring it to other countries, weaponizing it. And look at this. This map shows how many people left that main breakout, the ground zero, and look at all the flights coming out of there, and people who've also, other things that are extremely worrisome. You could get tested in the early stages of getting this thing, and you'll pass the test as negative. You don't have it, and then a week later, once it spreads inside your body, then you become positive. Listen, guys, there's no quarantine. Like, there's no way to stop this, in my opinion. Not a doctor, not a scientist, but I don't think this is going to stop. It's coming to your doorstep eventually. Just give it time. You're going to get it. It's a matter of time. It's not if, but when. So if you care about people, if you know people who are susceptible to this, from age to health complications, you might want to buy them some things or take care of them. So even the news in the US is starting to say, hey, you need to wash your hands, cover your mouth. That's like phase 1 out of like 5 phases. Eventually it's going to get to, hey, you need to get some mouth protection. And then, hey, you need to get some gloves and goggles. All right, guys, it's really getting bad now. You can't leave your home. And then it'll progress from there. There's already 12 bases set up in the US getting ready for this. If you don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. It's always actions, not words, that you should be looking at, because the actions always speak the truth. The words never. They're just keeping everyone calm right now, as long as humanly possible, as they prepare to deal with this. Like this is an extremely stupid comment, and I voted for him and everything, and I still think he's the best to have, best possibility, right? But at some point you can't just, maybe his advisors are giving him wrong information, probably, but at the same time he has a responsibility to keep the panic down. I'm sure they have simulations and models of what's really going to happen, just like in the movies. So maybe the best step is to keep everyone calm. But listen, at the same time, all the supplies that the people in the US need is going back to China. It's getting, and other countries are going to start doing the same thing. Online, they're going to order things, and stuff's going to keep flowing out of the country. Not just that, who makes all these things? China themselves. So we're going to have a shortage in supplies. Medications, like 97% are made in China. Think about that. It's gonna get crazy. What about their banking sector? Chinese banking sector was failing prior to this. Well, I guarantee you, it's the only reason it hasn't failed is because people probably aren't allowed to actually withdraw cash from the banks. No one's even talked about that. Other regions of the world are gonna get this, and they're gonna get it really bad before Europe and Russia and the US and Canada, right? like the second world and the third world, yeah, it's gonna get bad. They're not prepared for it whatsoever. It's just gonna run through them like crazy, and a lot of them are gonna try to escape to the better off nations. So you might actually get. So in this case, the wall, right, was actually a great idea for because you're gonna have millions of people trying to get into your country who are possibly all infected, and then what happens when you have large herds of people that are panicked? You can get all kinds of crazy stuff, civil unrest, you name it. All right, marauders, Mad Max, right? It's possible. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but I'm preparing like it is because you never know. But listen, they're still playing it off. They're saying a lot of things like we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. Just wait, keep waiting. Meanwhile, central banks. So we're gonna talk about Powell and his video and his I do have videos of real doctors, talking about this stuff in the newsroom. I suggest you get your head out of your rear ass and take this seriously if you haven't. And I'm not saying that. I'm only saying that because I don't know. I I care, but at the end of the day, I'm looking out for myself. Okay, so like I said, as this gets more serious, I'm probably gonna make less videos. All right. What am I doing? All right.
This stuff is just rich politics. Let's get down to the essence of this. You are the biggest regulator in town.
When the time comes. I mean, I think for the time being, what we're doing is we are looking forward to reading the comments on the proposal. I think we'll all learn quite a lot from those comments, and we'll be able to incorporate that thinking and whatever changes are made to the proposal. There may be substantial changes to the existing proposal coming out of the comments. So I think our view is that we want something that will leave everybody better off and will have broad support, and that's what we're going to be working on.
Well, as you may be aware, all of the Democrats on this committee urge regulators to provide a public comment period of at least 120 days on any major CRA reform instead of the 60 days that OCC and FDIC has provided. Community banks, state regulators, and community groups have called on these agencies to extend the comment period, and even though you said it is not your place.
All right, well, I'm going to provide some commentary on this. I can't play it nonstop.
To comment on whether or not this should be extended. I wish you would think about this, and I wish you would, as you're doing.
You said are temporary in nature. Is that still true?
Yes, our expectation is that we will continue our build purchases at least through into the second quarter.
All right, so you asked him about the repo market, like what's going on with that. Are you going to continue to do this? And Paul is basically saying this is temporary.
Continue repo operations at least through into April. And
into April.
The sense of that is, though, that we're building up a level of reserves to a level that will mean that we don't have to be involved in open market operations on an ongoing basis, and that's going to take that period of time. And as the underlying level of reserves rises due to our build purchases, the need for repo will decline, and sometime around the middle of the year we'll reach that level of ample reserves, and from that point forward, the balance sheet will grow at trend demand for our liabilities. We'll continue to expand with the economy.
Are you doing a review?
So he said till April or May. I highly doubt that. I guarantee you they can't stop forever. Like, they're stuck doing it. They might stop for a month, but then they'll have to go back to it. So it's just interesting to see.
On your capital requirements for financial institutions that should be participating in the repo market.
Well, I think we've reviewed supervisory and regulatory practices that may be affecting the flow of liquidity. Our main focus, of course, is the federal funds market and our ability to transmit our policy decisions smoothly into the money markets through the federal funds rate. What happened in early September, was that there was unusual tightness and volatility, and we attribute that to the fact that what appeared to be ample levels of liquidity didn't flow where they might have. And so we're really doing two things. One, we're raising the underlying level of liquidity by raising reserves to a level that's higher than we thought we needed. And that process, as I mentioned, will take till the middle of the year.
So part of that is a supervisory assessment as well to make sure that the policy is being driven in terms of the institutions.
That's right. Okay. And so we've been doing that since September.
So I raised this in my opening statement about China.
All right, so they're also going to talk about MCAW.
Now, you've spoken publicly about your assessment, your thinking as you see what is happening with China's response to the coronavirus. We wish them well. We have high hopes that they're going to be able to tackle this crisis, this public health crisis they're facing. But walk me through your thinking in assessing the situation in China now, in terms of economics, and that potential spillover effect.
So I'll just quickly start by saying again that we find the U.S. economy in a very good place, performing well.
All right, so he said spillover effect. That's proof that he doesn't even think about the fact that it might end up here. We might go through the same situation in the U.S. I'm telling you guys, they're not that smart. They're really not.
We see signs of global growth bottoming out. We see reduced trade policy uncertainty overall.
there's also invested interests who provide information for all these people, and they might not tell them the complete truth or the severity of any situation for their own best interests.
The background, we see strong job creation, continued moderate growth, all of those things. We see all this happens in the context of a good, strong U.S. economy. And into that picture comes the coronavirus. And so the question is, how do we think about that? Of course, first we observe the human tragedy, which is terrible to watch. The question for us really is, what will be the effects on the U.S. economy? Will they be persistent? Will they be material? That's really the question. I think we know there will be effects on China through some part of the first half of the year, and China's close neighbors and major trading partners in Europe as well as Asia. And we know that there will be very likely some effects on the United States. I think it's just too early to say. We have to resist the temptation to speculate on this. And so we'll be watching that carefully again. And the question we'll be asking is, will these be persistent effects that could lead to a material reassessment of the outlook?
So a question of length of time and whether or not this is a temporary disruption.
Yes.
Why did he say we need to resist on thinking of all the possibilities that may happen? Shouldn't you try to anticipate what's going to happen? See, the thing with bureaucrats and academia, these people always want to control everything, and they always think they're in control. But the problem is they can't ever anticipate anything into the future. Like, that's critical. That's what critical thinking is. I went to university for a very long time. They really don't promote critical thinking. It depends on the professor, but most of them didn't.
Thank you.
The gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Velasquez, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Chairman Powell.
All right, so let's move a little bit forward here.
When you join an organization like that, you're not necessarily signing up for everything that everybody there believes. You can benefit from the work that's being done there. We're kind of doing that now. We've not made a decision about membership.
Vice Chairman Quarles recently outlined changes that would increase supervision, transparency, and accountability. And I was encouraged by those comments, and we'll be following this closely, of course. One change the Vice Chairman outlined is that the Federal Reserve should restore supervisory observations, which will allow notice of a supervisory concern without it rising to the level of a matter requiring attention. Can you tell us what the timeline is that you see on those proposals to improve supervision?
Timeline is hard to say. I would just say what the Vice Chair did was he pointed to this tension that exists between very fundamental expectations of due process, transparency, and fairness around everything the government does, and should be associated with that, but also with supervision, which by its nature is private and somewhat discretionary, non-public, and confidential, really. So he pointed out that tension and the need to shed more light on that, and to ask whether there are places where supervision needs to incorporate more of that due process thinking. I think that's a very healthy thing to think about, and it's something we'll be working on.
In light of the coronavirus, Chairman, I can't help but think about, as a young man, as a boy, I spent a lot of time around my grandparents, I should say, and my great aunts and uncles. They were born just after the previous century. So their tales of firsthand experience in the pandemic of 1918 and 1919 were very graphic as it rolled through rural western Oklahoma. And the reason I bring this up is their description of that particular virus at that particular time in that particular rural society was that literally it brought everything to a stop for weeks in rural western Oklahoma. Now, my mother's family, my father's
See, this guy's speculating. He's a little concerned. So
family were very fortunate. No one died from what was called the Spanish flu, but it brought society to a stop. The reason I ask that is, with 43,000 cases worldwide and the critical impact in China, could you describe for a moment how China and its neighboring countries are responding to the economic impact of coronavirus in general and from the perspective of your fellow central bankers in those countries?
I think they're really responding now to the outbreak and containing it. And the Chinese government is obviously taking very strong measures on that. You see businesses closing down in the affected areas. You see that sort of thing. In terms of the economy, as you asked, the People's Bank of China has done a number of things to support economic activity, and I think you can expect the Chinese government to do lots of things to support economic activity. And they've said that they're open to cushioning the economic effects. We're not seeing it. We're not able yet to estimate the size of the economic effects. There are many estimates out there, but I think you'll see governments acting in Asia, particularly in China.
pretty much he's saying it's okay. They're all going to print money.
To offset those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back, Madam Chair.
The gentleman from
So what else was interesting was that he stated the official numbers that we see on everywhere, you know what I mean, like 48 or something thousand infected, as that is the real amount. Like, they have no idea, guys, that it's probably much, much more. And I'll talk about that later. So let's move on here.
Thank you. The gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Foster, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Powell, well, first off, I'd like to thank you for facilitating our meeting with Governor Brainerd. Representative Hill and I had on digital currency. We really enjoyed that, as well as the meeting with the staff, who are excellent, and it's great to see how plugged in they were to this issue. Now, in a speech last week, Governor Brainerd highlighted, quote, the role of central bank digital currencies in ensuring that sovereign currencies stay at the center of each nation's financial system. Do you agree with her characterization? And in particular, do you think that establishing a digital dollar would help ensure that the U.S. dollar continues to serve as the core of the U.S. and the world's financial system?
Well, to take the first part of that.
So he's worried that the dollar is going to get undermined by other countries trying to create their own cryptos, right? Central bank cryptos.
I think having a single government currency at the heart of the financial system is something that has served us well. It's a very, very basic thing that really hasn't been in question.
Yeah, it served you guys well. But they're still worried about this privatized money, and pretty much what they're really worried about is the dollar's reserve currency status in the world.
I think, before we move away from that, we should really understand what we're doing. So I think preserving the centrality of a central, widely accepted currency that is accepted and trusted is an enormously important thing.
Yeah, accepted and trusted, and he said before move away from that. They do plan on it because it's much easier to trap people with inflation if you don't have cash. Meaning, not only do they see everything you buy, right? You can't escape it. So when they make a law like you can't buy this, you can't buy that to escape inflation, you really can't because it's freaking digital, and they could always freeze your accounts. Now they could do that right now, but it just takes it's still an older digital. It's basically just ledgers, putting ones and zeros on other ledgers. It's not. I mean, we do a digital currency right now. That's what the dollar is right now. Only like 1 or 3 or 5% of it's in paper, but with the crypto thing, it's a digital ledger. It's easier to track everything, and they love that. More control, right?
I think whether a digital currency moves us along that path or not is an open question. As you know, every major central bank is currently taking a deep look at that we feel like that's our obligation. Technology has now made this possible. Private sector is innovating. They're doing it. So I think it's very much incumbent on us and other central banks to understand the costs and benefits and trade-offs associated with a possible digital currency.
Here's what they're probably worried about. They think if they start transferring now to it, it's too soon, and no one's going to trust it, and no one's going to like it, and then the value of the currency falls, right? And that's just that. There's so much debt outstanding in the original digital dollars, right? Although they could always easily you could exchange them for the new one, but the fact that they talk about this all the time now is it's becoming a new norm, and it's creepy as all hell. And all the crypto people, they only care about getting rich. They don't care about having freedom. And the number one way to lose your freedom is to give it up for money. You just don't understand. If you give up your freedom for money, you'll have neither, because then they'll just take your money later because you have no freedom. So yeah, that's another thing why I don't like crypto all that much anymore. In the beginning, it was all about, the talking points have completely changed, the freedom stuff. It's all bullshit at this point. At the end of the day, they're just pumping their bags. That's how I see it. They don't care about freedom or anything anymore. They have no principles that they used to. So basically, the promises of crypto in the past are no longer the same promises, which means they lied in the beginning, and this has happened over and over again. First it was currency, then it was store of value, then it's this, then it's that. That's another reason why I don't think in the long term crypto is gonna replace anything or Bitcoin itself is gonna go up in value so much. Not just that, they could stop it. I mean, with laws, this and that. I'm just being real, guys. I know some people are gonna spiral now and go in the comments section and thumbs down, whatever.
So how would you characterize your state of progress on this compared to other countries? The Swedish central bank developing an e-krona, the Chinese. The reason that one of the reasons there was so much concern about the Libra project is they would immediately have scale if they just rolled out the product. Another entity in a position to do that is the Chinese government, to roll out at scale using their already established payment by cell phone systems. They would immediately have a scale comparable to Facebook if they rolled that out.
He makes a great point, right? So if an institution already has a bunch of idiots on their platform using it because they have a monopoly and they gave it to everyone for free, like Facebook, you immediately could scale and become a threat to every other currency in the world, right? Can Bitcoin do that? No, it's not scalable. Can any of the other crypto, Ripple? No. And they're not going to allow it either. So just keeping it real, guys. I don't lie to myself. That's another thing with investing. A lot of people lie to themselves. They become married to their investment. It's like one of the golden rules not to do, because you're going to get your face ripped off.
And so how would you characterize our ability to respond to this potentially competitive threat?
So we're working hard on it. We have a lot of projects going, a lot of efforts going on it right now. We haven't had the problem that many of you mentioned. Sweden, a lot of the Northern European economies have moved away from cash to a remarkable degree. And that really has not happened in the U.S. economy, even though it seems like it must have happened with our kids not using cash very much. Nonetheless, the amount of cash in the U.S. economy continues to grow at faster than nominal GDP. So it's
but if you look at the curve of adoption of payment by cell phone, it starts slowly and then all of a sudden it just happens. And so that seems like that transition can happen in a period of just a couple of years. And so we have to be able to respond. If that's the driving factor, then we have to be in a position where we can respond by rolling out, for example, a digital dollar on a couple of year time scale. And so I
completely agree with that. I think, frankly, Libra really lit a fire under that, and it was a bit of a wake-up call that this is coming fast and could come in a way that is, that is quite widespread and systemically important fairly quickly if you use one of these big tech networks like Libra did. So we're working hard on it. We fully appreciate the importance of making quick progress. We have not decided to do this, though. It is not. I think that there are many questions that need to be answered around a digital currency for the United States, including issues of cyber issues, privacy issues. Many operational alternatives present themselves, and so we're going to be working through all that and doing that work thoroughly and responsibly. But
do you feel as though you have adequate visibility into what the Chinese are doing on this? Do you have sort of working level contacts that give you some idea of what their rollout is likely to do, likely to look like?
Yes, I mean we certainly have that, but they're in a completely different institutional context. There are things that, for example, the idea of having a ledger where you know everybody's payments. That's not something that would be particularly attractive in the United States context. It's not a problem in China. So, but nonetheless,
but so from a competitive point of view, they're claiming they're going to roll it out on the Belt and Road countries sometime very quickly. And so this, I urge you to keep the fire lit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep the fire lit. Obviously, they're looking into it. They haven't really figured out what they're going to do. At least Powell brought up some good points, which is privacy issues, right? But this guy is this politician's congressman is freaking out because he sees China doing it, and he just said that they're looking to implement it across the one belt, one road, the Silk Road initiative, which is that giant trade route across the entire planet, which I've showed you guys maps of prior. And let's just say all of that just got put a few years back on schedule, behind schedule, because of this new NCOV situation. It's going to have major effects for years to come. It's going to slow down GDP. It's going to blow up China's bubble and economy. We'll see if it gets to Euro and US and does the same. I'm hoping not. I really don't want to see that happen. The problem is, even if they come out with a vaccine, I mean, it'll probably still take like half a year at the earliest, or a whole year to be able to administer it, and then who knows if it'll work or if that'll be worse for you. I think it's just gonna spread. Everyone's gonna eventually get it, and we're just gonna see. There's gonna be a high, casualties. But that's not what worries me the most. It's not really the casualties. It's I mean, it's sad because you're gonna know people. Everyone's gonna know someone, but it's the economic aspect and downfall of it, and repercussions, right? Like, it's the black swan event. So having an implosion of global GDP and economy mixed with like something that's spreading and has a high rate of casualties, the mixture of the both is like a perfect storm for, like, I'm not gonna say Armageddon or anything, but it's gonna go down in history books, and it's gonna be big, and it's gonna be bad. All right. I think and believe. I'm not trying to spread fear. I would rather be prepared for this. That's all I'm saying, guys, than to not. That's all I'm saying. It's really it. All right, let's take a look at the yield curve. So the yield curve is inverted again. And check this out. So when it hits the red line, for the past 7 recessions, it's indicated one. As you can see here, for the 2008 and 9 one, it went below the red line, bounced, and then went below it again. And that's when interest rates spiked to the moon and blew up the entire debt bubble, right? And the mortgage-backed securities. Well, here's the first we already touched prior, like 8 months ago, spring or summer of 2019, and right now it's heading back down, the 10-year yield. And once it gets back down there, right, once it goes back down to, I would say, 1.5 or below, then we did a second touch below the red line, and then soon after, like a few months later, the system should falter like it did last time, because it's done it quite a few times. Did it back here, right? Touch, fell below it again, boom, recession. Fell below it the first time, had like a dead cat bounce, fell below it again, boom, recession. It's done it. Well, it's done it the last 3 recessions, so I'm expecting something similar. History doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. So the 1 month, the 3 month are around 1.57 interest rate, and the 10-year is only at 1.59. So it's pretty much inverted. Now, obviously, the 1 year, the 2 year, the 3 year, the 5 year, and the 7 year are all below the 1 month and the 3 month. So that's inversion of the yield curve again. And I told you guys this when the first time it happened. I said if it happens for a second time, that signals the top for the markets, or it signals it's going to happen, and it's going to happen very soon, like weeks or months. When the yield curve first inverts, you have a decent lag time from 6 to 8 to, I don't know, 16 months. But when it happens the second time around, I mean, you've got a few months, just a couple. So my all-time high call wasn't too bad, but I was off by a few hundred basis points. I mean, that's fine. I'm still probably the closest to calling it. And that's because, you know, you can't ever anticipate the manipulation. Look at the dollar. This is what I want to show you guys. Well, since we're just looking at the yield curve, let's take a look at a chart of the 10-year. You can see I was expecting it many months back, like 6 months back, for the yield curve, or for the interest for the yield on the 10-year bonds to keep falling and revisit this purple line. And as it does that, the price of gold and silver should move up, although it's really being held down right now. And then eventually it's going to just spike up and it'll blow up the system. Because the interest when it rises for all debts outstanding, then people start defaulting on debts, including corporations, and then the party music comes to a stop. And everyone tries to get out the exit all at once. Here's the dollar. Had a huge rally for the past 2 weeks. And that's because of China. So that makes sense. Will it actually break above 99 and 100? I don't know. We'll see. I can see it trading sideways for the rest of the year, to be honest. Now, if we look at all the major indices, if we let this load, here's NASDAQ in the left upper corner center. Here's the S&P. Here's the FANG. Here's Dow Jones. Here's the Russell 2000. Here's the Vanguard International. I mean, they've all ran straight up, especially the FANGs. The FANGs on the weekly are actually on an 8 count. So according to the TDI, on the 9 count, we should get a 1 to 4 sell-off, or maybe even a 9. Either way, they're all extremely overextended. If you look at the RSIs, look at all the oscillators, they've been pegged to the ceiling for so long, it's ridiculous. I mean, this cannot go infinitum. And I know everyone thinks that. And that's that bias, right? Even Wall Street, they're like, don't fight the Fed. Even when the world's like, facing a serious pandemic. Here's the FANGs. Like I said, it's on an 8 count, the FANG index. So either the end of this week or the beginning of next week, the music should be it. All right. I know I've been saying it for like 2 months now, but this is getting ridiculous. This shows you how scared they are. They cannot even let the market dip. That's how scared they are. They think if the market even dips 5%, that all hell will break loose and panic will ensue, which they're probably right. That's why they won't even let it dip. Like a 15 or 20% correction. Let me show you this. So these are weekly charts. Look how far the prices are from the 200-week moving average. That's the thick white line for all of these. Right? So for the NASDAQ, look look at the spread. Every time the price gets so far from the 200-week moving average, the divergence there, or the spread, it needs to revisit it every once in a while to reset itself and to hit equilibrium. Look at it on the S&P 500. See how the price went up and it had a huge distance from the 200-week moving average, then it revisited it? It's going to do it again. No matter what Trump tweets or no matter what. Look at the fangs. Look how far. Look at the distance between the 200-week and the price. It's insane. Even the Dow Jones. Look at the difference. Look at the spread on that. It's insane. It's going to do one of these dips again. And when it does, gold and silver should rally massively. Here's the financials. So here's the big trillion-dollar cap-weighted companies and their stocks, and these are the ones that everyone keeps buying, and because everything's in a cookie-cutter index fund all thrown into one basket, when these rise, they pull everything up higher. Now, it's amazing because Apple pretty much shut production in China, so they're not making anything, but their stock, if you take a look over here, it's not as strong. It hasn't like gone straight up for the past 2 weeks like everything else. It actually is reflected somewhat in the price, but it's still up there. Look at Microsoft. This is straight up parabolic 9-degree angle up. Can this be sustained? No, it's common sense. But when everyone's in a bubble and they have that bias and they've rewired their brain to be a bull for the rest of their lives because it's benefited them, they don't see it because they've become blinded. They're like horses with blinders. It's really fascinating to see how humans do that to themselves, and how, despite history, despite all their knowledge and how smart they are, this happens to the smartest people in the world, they can't see what's in front of them. My gift is I can, I guess. Although I'm, I guess, a little bit early. I'd rather be early than late, guys. But I'm not early. I benefited from the bull market in 2019 for the metals. Right now, metals are just, let's take a look at gold and silver. Then I'll look at BTC. This would load. Give me a second. Give me a second. While that loads, we could look at this. Oh, nothing. Here's a CNN article. So I didn't find this in the speech, but Powell said, warned Congress that the virus could hurt the global economy. No shit, Sherlock. I said this, what, 3 weeks ago? Maybe it's 4 weeks ago now. See, I'm always ahead, guys. That's why I make these videos. I tell you guys the future before it happens, in a way. I'm not always right, but, you know, I'm more right than wrong. And if you pay attention and you don't forget what I said, then you could really profit in a really big way. But I feel like most people listen to me, then they listen to 5,000 other things and they forget what I said. And then I like don't get credit. I mean, it is what it is. Alright, let's take a look at gold here. Let's take a look at the weekly. I'm already over an hour. Great. RSI is a bit overextended on the weekly. That is concerning. Let's take a look at the monthly then. But the monthly, we had a 9 sell, and then the price broke back above the previous high. Well, not quite, but close enough to where still, I mean, it is concerning, the RSI momentum oscillator. A lot of the oscillators are a bit overextended, but that doesn't mean it can't run higher. And here's what's going to happen. It's either we're going to get a moonshot, like a couple $100 move to the upside, maybe make a new high in the next few months because of what's going on globally, or it's going to just sell off with the rest of the market. That's what I'm afraid of. I want it to shoot up before it crashes with everything else, because listen guys, it's going to crash with everything else eventually, but the beginning of the correction in equities might shoot the price up a few $100, and then a few weeks later, the metals will just crash with everything else as everyone hits the exit button, sells everything, including mining stocks, including futures, everything, and then metals will fall on the markets, the paper markets, with stocks and everything else. The physical stuff, though, the spot price on that will stay the same. This is exactly what happened in 2009. So I'm worried that it'll fall, not shoot up first. And the weekly looks like it's ready to revisit at least 1500 on gold. Although the 3-day chart and the daily are more positive, although the 3-day chart's also overextended with the oscillators. Let's take a look at the daily. Here's the only hope. The only hope is the daily is still very bullish. The oscillators are reset to the downside. They're oversold. And it looks like it's just consolidating and waiting to break higher on the daily. So this could be a quick move, right? A few weeks upside, and then maybe dumps with the rest of the market. It all depends on the equity markets, how long they can keep the music playing for those, and how fast and furious the correction will be. The velocity of the correction. If the velocity of the correction is like 20% in one day, yeah, metals are going to dump with it. If it's like 5% every other day for like a couple weeks, then metals could rally easily. 12-hour chart. 12 hours neutral. It's not easy, guys. I'm waiting to see what happens this week. I want to see the markets correct. We get some upside on metals. I'll take profits, go to cash, short the crap out of a few things, and then get some more cash, like for yourself physically. Get some more physical metal, and I don't know, go build a bunker. That's pretty much it for right now. Listen, the silver I think silver is still moonshot because of my blue equilibrium line that really worked out well for gold. It predicted the bull market for gold a few months ahead of time, didn't it? I warned you guys. Whoever took my advice on that did really well. If we take it to the weekly, right? The 200-day moving, or the 200-week moving average could cross above my blue equilibrium line. It should shoot silver up. And if silver makes a new high, or even gets to $20, which would be a new high, it's going to cause gold to shoot straight up as well, which would give us that, the huge rally for a few weeks, or maybe a month, maybe 2 months. I don't know, because I don't know what's going to happen with the spread of the NCOV globally and how fast. You have to time a lot of things all at once. So this is why I take this day by day for the private members. Alright guys, smash them likes, leave anything in the comments section, go to my website. We also have like PDFs of what to do in these types of scenarios, how to prepare, and maps where there's safe regions within the US, this and that. So if you're interested in that, mining stocks, learning how to trade, watching me give you guys some ideas, and I post charts of my personal trades so you guys could learn. and research, mining stocks, other stuff. Good community of people helping each other. It's only $10 a month. No one can beat that. I undercut everyone. The initial price is $300 though to get the report, to get in. That's like the entry fee. And then there's a bunch of updates and uploads in the private group. All right, guys. Till next time.